Right, welcome everybody. Another STC webinar, number 17 this time. Very excited today because we've partnered up with our friends at Digital Northampton, who have helped us put this together. So that's great. So I'll hand over to Richard in a moment, and then we'll hand over to the team at Jump to talk about the human element. It should be fascinating. Just to reiterate, as I normally do, this is part of a series. So we'll record this session and it'll be available on YouTube to have a look at. Obviously, all our other webinars are available on YouTube as well, so please go and have a look. There's obviously more on the way as well, because this is an ongoing series that we're doing. So we've got one coming up, which is all to do about COVID-19 risk assessments when you get people back into work. So that'll be next week, which should be quite interesting. We'll then also have one on how to maximize cash flow with VAT, which is being delivered by one of our founding members, Grant Thornton. And then also we're teaming up with SamLab to talk about business support that is available for success and growth and help you come out of the pandemic situation. So lots of interesting stuff on the way. So do please sign up to all the ones that you're interested in and join us for that. So I'll leave it there for now in terms of the sales pitch. So I'll hand over to Richard and obviously to the team at Jump. And yeah, very much looking forward to this one. So Richard, over to you.
Real, thanks, Pim. Hopefully you can see my screen now that I'm sharing.
Yeah, we can.
Good stuff. I'll just minimise that. So thanks very much for the opportunity. Digital Northampton, we've been going about 18 months now. So we're a collaboration between the University of Northampton, Northamptonshire County Council and local digital businesses. And basically the whole remit, we're trying to put the county on the map for the kind of digital work, innovation that's taking place across the whole county. We're obviously known for motorsport, food and drink logistics, but not so much digital. And we're trying to reverse that a little bit. So we're doing that by trying to build a digital community. We've got a website, digitalnorthampton.com, where we talk about all the things that we have on. We're really active on social channels, on Twitter. We'll post about our events, job opportunities, work, latest innovations that are taking place locally. Also on LinkedIn, Digital Northampton, if you search for that. And the main thing we do is around putting events on. So this time last year, our first major event was called Merge Futures. That was held at the University of Northampton, the Learning Hub there. That was a full day event. So Stephen Jump kindly presented there around gamification. We had about 15 different sessions, presenters from all different backgrounds, from local business, from academia. The university were presenting on how they use new immersive technologies in some of their courses, like using VR in healthcare and training nurses. We had lots of different market square type space going on with companies with their large screen TVs, VR headsets. So anybody could come and try this different kind of technology out. It was a really positive day. We had about 300 people on the day come through. So it was a whole background of different people from public sector, private sector, all mixing and connecting. So really, really positive day for us. So what I thought I'd do really just talk about the last year, the year in the life of Digital Northampton, what we've done in the last 12 months to give you a bit of a flavour of what else we do. So on the back of Merge Futures, we hold events every month. So just on the screen there gives you an idea of some of the different subject areas. So these are with people in business, academia will come in. They were all physical events, but obviously we're switching to virtual events now, talking about anything to do with digital really, and we cover a whole spectrum from e-learning, Internet of Things, immersive healthcare, digital marketing, anything really to do with digital. And it's a knowledge sharing exercise. So people come and talk about the kind of work they're doing, case studies. People can come and learn about all these different technologies and how they're being used and take them back into their own environment and then apply that into their own spaces. And they're great at making connections. So building that community up, the events are a big part of that, meeting people. And then in August, we've get out and about making as many connections as we can. There's some examples there. So Tech Nation, they're big across the whole of East Midlands, mainly in Birmingham. So we've connected in with them. So again, spread the word about Northampton, Northamptonshire, what's going on across borders. We also met up with obviously yourselves, Pim, to understand what the tech cluster's like. Milton Keynes Fringe as well, they do something similar to us, and Leicester Startups. So trying to understand what people are doing across the borders, different kind of initiatives to connect digital together. And a big thing we're about is trying to connect academia into businesses as well, trying to spread the word there. So we have, this was an example of the Northampton School for Boys. On the right there is Ian Douglas. He leads the gaming division at the university. So he went in to talk about the whole gaming course that he leads, games art design. So it was just to show them what's on their doorstep, really. They don't have to leave the county if they want a digital career or to learn about digital. Just showing them what is on their doorstep and the opportunities. And academia have really connected in with us since Merge Futures. So we spent a day at Wren School. We ran an innovation competition with them. Some of their Year 9 students designed a promotional video for our Merge Futures event. So that was about trying to go in and inspire some of the kids to get into digital innovation and just to show them what we were all about. On the website, we've built a directory. So Steve's in that, jumps in that. We've got about 80 or 90 different companies from across the county, all different kind of sectors in there within digital. So a big part is, again, trying to create a digital supply chain, a local digital supply chain. So if anyone needs any kind of digital work doing, rather than thinking they have to go to Birmingham or London, that they think local. And that's one place to go and see what companies we've got here. Northampton College, connected in with them. They've got a lot of SEMLEP funding there, building a digital academy there. In January, we went in and ran a virtual reality competition. Their games media course, some of their students were designing using VR, like a construction workshop for their course there. So we sponsored that. We took in this company, you can see on the left there, AR Media. They're a great virtual reality company, media company in the town. They went in and judged that competition. And they've since connected in with the college. So they're looking at going in and showing them the kind of skills that are needed in their workplace, and hopefully doing some guest speaker slots and hopefully some work experience opportunities as well. And then Chris Broom with the Silverstone podcast, we took over 3 or 4 people that we'd met as part of our network, took them over to Chris. He interviewed them for his podcast. So again, that's another big part of what we do, trying to connect people together across the whole county, connect different networks together. So a little bit like what we're doing today. And then in March, as part of International Women's Day, we joined in the celebration in the town centre. So lots of women that are in digital businesses locally, they put on different stalls and just talked about the kind of work that they do. So that was really successful. There was hundreds of people going in through that the whole day. So it's just another element of what we're trying to do around the inclusivity side. So that was about 12 months. And then last month we did our Merge Futures second event. So again, we had to switch this to online. That really opened it up for us though. So anyone could attend from all over the world. So we had people from Tokyo, from Iraq, from New York attend that. So it was a really successful event in terms of putting us on the map for what we're trying to do with this this initiative. We had about 12 sessions. It was a free event. Everything we do is free. So again, Steve was talking there on the humanisation aspect, so we'll be talking about that soon. We had lots of different presentations about gaming, virtual reality, cyber security. So it was a really great day, and again, just help connect people together and promote what we are trying to do. So in terms of what's next, the Borough Council are building the Vulcan Works in Northampton Town. So I'm looking at that at the minute. It doesn't quite look like that picture. They're about halfway, 3/4 of the way there. It's going to be a creative hub. So we're really keen for that to be a kind of digital hub. If we can encourage as many digital businesses to move into that place as possible, it gives us like a cluster of businesses to promote and hopefully build a bit of momentum around what we're trying to do. And as I said earlier, we've carried on with the events. These are virtual events that we're putting on, Tech at 10. So at the last Friday of every month, we'll put these on. They're free events, and we'll have different subjects where people are talking about different aspects. So tomorrow's our first one, digital in healthcare. We've got the lead digital manager from the Northampton Hospital talking about how they're working to build a digital hospital. So that should be really interesting. And we've got someone from the Oxford Medical Hospital there talking about how they're using VR in hospitals. So we're really keen to connect across borders as well and share as much information, build those networks and connections as much as possible. And then August, really excited about this one. End of August, esports in Northamptonshire, showcasing what's going on around making Northampton, the county, a digital esports town. So the university are talking about their new esports course that kicks off in 2021. Saints Rugby are going to be talking about what they're doing in esports. And we've got a local digital business in Northampton who's created an esports team in the US, talking about how he wants to do that in Northampton. So if anyone's interested in esports, I know Formula One is quite big on esports, then please do come along to that. And we've got a radio show we've kicked off, so live from the university. Every 2 weeks, we have a show there for a couple of hours, again, just extending what we do with the events, talking to different people across the whole network. And that's it, really. So we're really keen to get in touch with anyone in the Silverstone Tech Cluster. If you're interested in any of the events that we do, we're really keen to do a kind of joint event at Silverstone, understanding the digital innovation that you guys use across the cluster. So yeah, please do get in touch if anything we've talked about is of interest and you want to have any sort of joint events, or if you want to connect into any digital businesses that we might have mentioned. So thanks very much. So just over to Steve now. So Steve from Jump, he presented our Merge Futures event around humanisation in digital. So I won't say too much about that. It was a really interesting talk that Steve and Dave did. Lots of interaction on the day. And Pim asked us to connect him in with one of the businesses that we use across Northampton. So the whole remit, really, what we're trying to do is to promote the digital businesses that are local, to show the sort of talent that we've got on offer. So that's what Steve's going to talk about today with Dave. So over to you.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the STC for having us. We'll do our best to show some talent, Richard, so thanks for the introduction. So what we're going to present on today is humanisation in a digital world, but it's applicable to software, systems, products, anything like that. It's just actually what we're trying to get across is the knowledge around actually humanising our interactions, because what what is happening in the modern world a lot of the time is that we're using technology to build our products and systems, or we're building new products to solve problems, but a lot of the time we actually strip the human element out, which is affecting buy-in. So we're going to try and give a 20-minute overview into a very complex area. So do forgive us if we skip over some intricate details, but obviously we have the Q&A at the end. I'm Steve, this is my colleague Dave. Dave is head of engagement at Jump and very much pioneers and leads all our human work with his psychology background. So Jump is a strategic marketing agency. We basically work with organisations of all shapes and sizes to solve problems. We're not the type of company that want to come and just deliver this and that. We want to actually work with organisations to get at a deep level to actually understand what their strategic objectives are, who they're focused on engaging, what problems they're trying to solve, and then actually develop strategies and mediums to do that, rather than just deliver a website or a piece of VR or something like that simply because someone thinks that's the right thing to do. Because ultimately, just because they think it's the right thing to do doesn't mean that it's strategically the right thing for their organisation or their audience. So humanisation, what is it and why is it important? So humanisation is essentially, this is our definition of that, is the process of ensuring that identified human needs remain part of our interactions. And when we say identified human needs, this draws on psychology going back literally hundreds of years into things like hierarchy of needs and so on and so forth, but has actually come forward in the last few years from some research that actually happened in healthcare. What Dave and I have actually done is then adapt that into our world, which revolves mainly around digital and product and software, and obviously creative marketing solutions for what we do. So the humanising care toolkit was some research put together by a number of different universities and NHS trusts that went round and actually spoke to patients in hospital, and then put together some research based on a lot of qualitative work with them of understanding actually what is your experience and how can we improve that. And what they found was essentially that you're almost the cog in the system with no choice when it comes to entering the healthcare system. Everything is at the whim of the doctor, their decision, their schedule. It's very difficult to have any kind of autonomy over your care. And then they put together the 8 aspects of humanising care and how you can actually help people feel like they're still in charge of their own destiny. We've adapted that down into 5 for ease of use for the presentation, but also there's some overlap in different things. It takes a lot of explanation to then differentiate between those two.
So we started out, and this is where we tend to start with a lot of new work that we're doing. with this process of sense making. This comes from a lot of research in psychology about how human beings actually make sense of new or complex issues. If we take the current climate, you can look on the news today and you can see the confusion that is wrought from some of the directions and directives coming out of government about whether to wear face masks or not, and where and when can you go on holiday, what's happening when you, and people are, the reason for all of that kerfuffle is it's new, it's strange, and people are trying to make sense in their local world, in their local environment, of what does it mean for me, what does it mean for us. So in any kind of change activity, whether it's a product, a digitization, the first point for thinking is, how will people make sense of this? Because if it doesn't make sense, people will fill in the blanks with an assumption, and generally that assumption will be, well, this is rubbish, this doesn't work, it's a bad experience. Then research tells us that actually if somebody has a bad experience, if somebody has a good experience, they'll probably tell somewhere in the region of 3 to 7 people in their network. If they have a bad experience, they'll tell 14 plus people in their network. So we start with this process of, right, let's get the sense-making part right up front. Let's start the stories, the dialogue, and the information from this point of view. All because, and as Steve alluded to in his introduction to this, is in that triangle, a lot of organisations, certainly that I work with, talk a lot about the actions at the top of the triangle, the things they want to do, so the product they want to buy, but actually they forget that this is being driven by the experiences of people within the system. And so if you haven't understood those experiences, if you haven't got deep down into those beliefs, assumptions, the stories people are telling about what this problem may or may not be, you can often, because of the lenses you're applying to it, come up with what you believe, genuinely believe, is a good action, a good thing to do, but actually it's the wrong solution to probably the wrong problem as well. So we try to get down into that experiences, the beliefs, assumptions and stories before we start engaging with, well, right, what is it we're trying to achieve here, what we're trying to do.
And a lot of the time, like, user experience is quite a buzzword nowadays with, you know, almost any industry. People talk about that, but what we a lot of the time fail to acknowledge is how that actually then affects what people believe. So this triangle is can be also very simply seen as a playthrough of what's my experience. So when you come into a new house, for example, you know, your experience on entering that, you know, whether you think it's tidy, well furnished, has it got a dodgy smell or something like that, is then going to start to drive your belief and assumptions about that house, the people that live there. It's going to affect your paradigm, your mindset that you look through everything, and ultimately is going to change what you see as facts and what you see therefore as playing out with actions. Just note on the word user before we move on, and user experience. I can't claim credit for this, but I read it from someone else who said there was only 2 types of people that refer to their customers as users: marketing agencies and drug dealers. So we're one of those, but we're going to try and use the word people and humans rather than users. So why is it important then? Well, basically, as I alluded to at the start, what we're trying to do a lot of the time in business or with software or with product or with digital is actually solve an evolutionary objective. We're trying to make something cheaper, faster or easier, whether that's for our end user. There you go. First slide, geez. For our people, or actually for us as a business. But what we often then do is focus on that first scenario and strip out anything that's cultural. So how you make people feel valued, how we personalize something, how we're empathetic. And that obviously massively affects then our ability to buy in and actually get people to use the cheaper, faster, easier system. So what we're trying to do with humanizing solutions is basically make them make sense and encourage positive experiences, beliefs and assumptions, so that people continue to use our products, continue to come back and actually have a more positive experience and say, okay, that company's great, rather than, yeah, don't go there. So we split these up into 5, like I say. The first being work out who and why. So this crosses over hugely with user research. I'm going to try not to navigate onto that side too much, because obviously that's a whole presentation in itself. But humanised systems are solving a defined problem. They make sense because they are doing something that we need doing. There is a clear why for that product or for that system or for that software. And in tandem with that, they have a defined group of people. So again, I'm sure we've all been there in different guises where we have small ideas and things like that. But actually then when we drum down into, okay, who is that for and why we created this, we might struggle to define those. If you want to humanise a system, you need to know what you're trying to do and who you're trying to achieve it for. That allows you to then essentially empathise with people, go and speak to them, find out their problem points, find out actually how you can improve their lives, whether that's really, really simple in terms of, do you know what, my computer's so slow that it just does my head in every day and I just need something to run a bit faster, or a program that takes up less memory, or whether that's something huge, i.e., producing a different kind of product. If we understand the who, we can understand what their needs are. We're not all as generic as we like to think we are when we're sitting in the office and coming up with solutions. It's actually all very tightly around the who. Really simple example there being, if we wanted to create a digital product, we first need to understand the digital literacy of the audience. We've recently been involved in creating a super secure self-service portal for victims of crime, who, after experiencing victimisation, can then go on and actually do some e-learning behind a really tight security wall. That has been an eye-opening experience in understanding the levels of digital literacy. You have to have on that product two-factor authentication when you sign in. And oh my days, I can't tell you how much iteration we're doing on that very subject, just because of different varying levels of digital literacy. And obviously, like I said, a strong why helps the product to make sense. That all then starts to shape our experiences, our beliefs and assumptions about whether this product is going to help or hinder. This is your example, isn't it? So I'll let you take that.
Yeah, so I often get asked to come and work with organisations after the fact. So the system, the process, the thing has been brought in and it's not doing what they thought it was going to do. One system I was involved in at some point was it was a multi-shared service. It was a HR-based system, but the issue being that the organisation had gone from a Friday when the person who had the problem would pick the phone up and speak to a person in a department who they generally knew or had spoken to before, and the problem would get solved, to Monday, a whole new system being brought in where that phone call couldn't take place because actually the system was based way out of county, and you had to engage with the system and put your requests in through the system, etc., etc. And what I found when I first started talking to users was within the first week, the multi-shared service title had been changed to the title that we've put on there, which, as you can imagine, generates further dialogue and stories. And I've done some testing this year with people who joined the organisation this year and asked them about the system that they're using, which is still in existence, and they used the same acronym when they spoke of it. So they never had the first experience of being able to speak to somebody in the HR department, but because it's become part of the organisation's story and culture now, they've been indoctrinated into believing it's actually not a bad system, if I'm honest with you. But because that sense-making part, because that humanised part was missed in the implementation and design, we end up with this. And I've now been told by the CEO of the organisation they're getting rid of it this year and looking to do something different, which you can imagine the cost of, struggling along with a system that has got that kind of reputation.
So step 2, collaborate. So once you've identified your who and your why, you want collaborators, not clients, because that's how you essentially are going to take into account their feelings, interests and uniqueness. So what we all want is to feel like a system is made for us, rather than actually we have to struggle over the system to get what we want done, which is actually, the experience that Dave was just talking about there. You used to be able to pick up a phone. There was no problem with the current system. There might have been a business problem with it, but they couldn't then change that narrative. They built a system without consulting with people, taking into account what they needed, and all of a sudden all people saw was barriers. So the easiest way to understand kind of collaboration and how products and systems need to collaborate with us is, does it feel like it's me with the system, or does it feel like it's me against the system? If anyone's ever tried to put up a tent or something like that at a festival, I'm sure you've had both experiences. One where, okay, that was the easiest thing I've ever done, and one where I'm about to burn this thing down and sleep in the field. It's exactly the same point with any product or any system. Oh, excuse me, what? And it also helps us develop a narrative, so that we are involved in it. This has been built with us in mind. So on trying to understand the best examples of this, there was one company that stood out head and shoulders above the rest on Google, and the favourite quote on that was, "Ryanair seems to make it deliberately difficult in order to make more money out of its customers." And again, I'm sure we've been there. If you're anything like me, I know Ryanair have tried to change a lot, but I just physically couldn't bring myself to go on a Ryanair flight because of the way that you feel treated throughout the process. It's a really, really powerful kind of thing. Autonomy.
Yeah, so this is about actually how much control do I have in using the system, or how much am I forced to go down routes that perhaps I don't particularly want to go down. If you think about how your desktop on your computer is configured, all of us could all share our desktops now, and we'll see that we've all configured them somewhat differently because of our own personal needs and wants. And even then, the story, the language. So when Apple, Microsoft, and people like that started to talk about things going onto the computer, they deliberately used the term desktop, because people were used to having a desktop on which they configured their particular in and out tray and their particular where the phone was positioned, etc. A similar kind of process. And this is, do we then allow within the system for some level of autonomy that allows me to be familiar with my system? So it's my desktop, it's my computer, it belongs to me. So you get that human buy-in to the new system, or to the system.
And likewise, autonomy essentially allows you to make choices. So what came out in healthcare, which I was talking about at the start in this research, was around how, like, you know, the most basic thing that we have as humans is to be autonomous. We're not robots, but in healthcare, you're pushed through a system where it doesn't allow you really any choice. And it's when you actually look at a lot of systems and products, we're exactly the same. So, you know, a really simple example, we've tried to keep all the examples simple here so that we're not saying, okay, here's this multi-million pound example, because it seems very unattainable. But is things like staff surveys and PDRs. So the most frustrating thing, if you want to feed back, for example, is not having a free text box, and you can only put a number. Now, the number makes it really, really simple for an organisation to quantify where a particular area is at, because obviously it just runs its algorithm or goes through a load of Excels and says, okay, we're at an average of 4.5 there. We're actually, as the person using this system, I want to be able to feed back and tell you why, so you can change it. That then obviously, skipping back onto our narratives and things as well, starts to then shape whether I think this organisation really cares or not, or whether this is just a tick box exercise, because they're not going to be able to know how to change something. They just want to know something that suits them rather than something that's allowing me to contribute. We were talking before about characters, and for better or worse, I just really hate being told what to do. It's a character flaw or character strength, depending on which side of the table you're sitting on. And that's all down to autonomy, feeling like you have free will in the world. That all leads on to, we've crossed over a little bit, but actually allowing people to customise. There's a slight difference between allowing autonomy in, free choices around, do I take the red pill or the blue pill, and that then leads on to this kind of scenario. But also allowing people to create somewhere where they feel familiar. So that's where we build up our psychological safety. So again, I talked about a house earlier. Going to your own house, it's the most familiar thing in the world. Going to someone else's house, it's the most alien kind of concept. Before you've been there a few times, you start to build this picture of familiarity. And so what a lot of leading tech products have done is allow you to create that customization. So physically, we have it in offices by being able to change your desktop. Online, we have it by being able to change your desktop. If anyone, I'm sure, remembers when Facebook launched, it was this strangest, most incredible thing to be able to really customize this page. Now we don't think of Facebook as particularly customizable at all. But at the time, it's like, oh, I can have my picture here, I can do this there and stuff. And it was totally your own system. It's the same with any product or system that we're trying to develop for our own in-house teams or for our own consumers and people outside. If you can allow them to customize this product, it becomes theirs. That is a humanized product rather than just an off-the-shelf cold experience. My favorite example of this is something unbelievably simple, but when you take your car for a service at Audi, you've gone through the online booking system, which again is like relatively simple nowadays, right? It's just a form that links into your CRM. But what they've got is they've got someone waiting at the times that people are meant to be coming in. So they know on their iPad standing out in the car park that, okay, Steve's coming in at 8:30. They see a car drive in at 8:30, they look down to check out the number plate and they say, okay, that is Steve. And they come and greet, they say, hello, Mr. Walsh. It's the most personalised thing, but it just takes no, that's not some big infrastructure. It's just being really clever. They then radio through to reception and say, okay, this is Mr. Walsh coming in. And the reception greets, hello, Mr. Walsh. Like, thanks for bringing your car in today. How are you? We last saw you whenever. What a humanised, personalised experience, but without any particular need for big tech. Again, it's something that you could do. You might be a small one-man band florist. You can easily just have your phone connected up to everyone that's stored on your system, and it comes up and you can ask that person who's got their last orders there. That's customization in action, and that is really improving the human experience to create more buy-in and essentially like advocacy. Do you want to make it homely?
So obviously, I know you'll get it from by this point in the talk. It's about creating connection for people and helping people to feel like this is part of me. It's mine. It fits with who I am. So it makes me feel, when I engage with the system, when I engage with the product, when I engage with the process, it makes me feel like I'm at home, I'm comfortable, I know what I'm doing. I don't feel, people will generally get anxious when they're engaging with something new. So the key to this part of making it homely is to reduce those levels of anxiety, to help people to feel like, oh, actually, this fits. Think about things that we have at the moment, things that are being discussed at the moment, how we've made it super, super easy to change your energy supplier. We've made it super, super easy to change your bank provider. But very few people do it because they're so at home with where they are. Even if some people, even if they're having difficulties with that provider, won't necessarily think to change because they're so at home with how that provider's been in the past. And it's that kind of feeling. It's what people talk to me about, oh, it's the softer things, isn't it, Dave? And I often will smirk and say, well, actually, these are the harder things to deal with, these human relations, and actually building comfort and building people's feeling of, I love this company, I love this website, I love this design, I love this product. That's what we're talking about when we talk about making it homely.
We just some really, really simple, but I think examples that will resonate. If anyone's got an Apple or got an Android, the fear that they feel in their stomach of actually switching to the other one is unrivaled. The same with something like Sky and Virgin Media, just because they're so familiar. You know what to do everywhere. They've become your home, essentially, and that's what really well-designed systems do. If a system's poorly designed, your reticence to change is much larger. But if you've allowed for all these different things and allowed someone to make it their home, they've set it up in the way that they want to, and they've got everything on their planner that they want, they've got everything on their home screen, change is really difficult. And so it's almost like twofold, in that when you create a humanised system that's very homely, you put up a positive barrier to people ever wanting to leave. And that is obviously the goal for most of what we all do, is just create advocacy so that we don't ever want people to leave or stop using our products or our software. So the key takeaways for us was, I mean, obviously a lot of this involves digital, just by the work that that we do. But I think the key thing that I'd like everyone to take away in this rapid fire presentation is that humanise your digital, but don't digitise your human. So what we're not trying to do when we create humanised experiences ultimately replace the role of the human. It can't be done. It's getting closer and closer with things like chatbots and AR and intuitive AI. But at the same time, what you need to do is actually work to satisfy the needs of humans. They are the people that interact with virtually every system that we build, even if it's someone just actually altering the algorithm, rather than actually trying to digitize a current human experience. Give people autonomy, give people a voice. They will respond better, they'll buy in more. You will create a humanized experience that they feel like they are driving rather than is being done to them. And that is the key to create ultimate buy-in. Boom. 20 minutes, done and dusted.
Thanks for that, Steve and David, very good. I mean, obviously we'll open it up to questions, but I'd like to kick off if I may. When you mentioned the allow for autonomy thing, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me, but surely there has to be a balance between you know, how you analyze the results and what you get, because if you allow everybody to just type in whatever they want, you know, you get spelling mistakes, you get lots of different inputs, and it becomes much more difficult and much more costly to analyze the results and make sense of it. So presumably you need to strive to get some sort of balance. How would you advise that people do that sort of thing?
I think for me, Pim, the key there is the engagement process. And it's actually through that engagement process is understanding, you use the word perfectly, the balance between what is the business need, how is the business need being met, but we balance it by thinking about the humanisation side of it as well. A lot of times when after the fact I'm asked to come in because the thing that has been brought in isn't doing what they hoped it would do, or isn't performing the way they hoped it would perform. When you start to then question and look at that balance, the balance has been skewed towards the system or product and away from the human interaction side of it. And so it's, for me, this is an upfront kind of, before we start to go down the route of spending lots of money, let's understand what is that balance. And if the business need is such that levels of autonomy have to be massively reduced, as in a lot of cases they will have to be because of the business need. What's the story you're going to tell the people about that? How do you communicate that back to the people? So in that sense-making process, but I get that. I understand that. I understand why you've had to go down this route. So now I've got a different feeling of sense of why this is, rather than why do I have to do, you know, and it's never communicated back as to the why.
Yeah, and it's really all about, you know, obviously what do you want to achieve as a business, and what information are you looking to gain, but then also put the piece of thinking into, you know, and how are we gonna interact with our guys to make sure they provide us with the information that they want, because you know, it's quite easy to just plop out a survey and say fill all of this stuff in, but obviously if that's very off-putting and disenfranchising for the users, if you will, then yeah, you're never going to achieve that, right? So it's the balance of that, and it's interesting how often you kind of don't see that, and you must come across that a lot, where it's that second element where they kind of go, great, this is what we need, let's put it out to the guys and see what they say, and then kind of go, hey, that didn't work. You must get that quite a lot, I should imagine.
Absolutely, and you know, it all comes down to, so in this, what I want to caveat all this underneath all this is, nobody I've come across has ever gone down a route of bringing a solution in, without giving some thought to what that solution is. But sometimes the solution is so focused on that the human element, the fact that human beings need to interact with this or do something with this, it isn't really thought of up front. And so it's all about just again, balancing that thinking. And I would never say to an organisation, actually, your business need needs to come second. It doesn't. Your business need comes first. But as long as you can then say, right, we've thought about this, we've taken away a lot of autonomy, we're going to tell people why we've had to do that. And I think that's what's the important part is sometimes missed.
Yeah, excellent. Does anybody have any particular questions or points they want to raise? By all means, raise your hand. Or Steve, yeah.
Yeah, I did wonder if there is a way to deal with the difference in people, because there's if you've got a digital service that you're trying to provide to quite a wide range of different people's experience here, from the old to the young. I've got an elderly mother-in-law who finds it really difficult to understand the icons on a modern digital phone. She tends to hit the red button to answer because she thinks red means do something important. Things off. You get a little kid would just know it instinctively. How do you change? How do you make it humanizing when there is such a vast difference in people's experiences?
I think that's probably where the customization element comes in. So it's a really good point. I think that there's still some work to be done on this. One of the small things that like Apple, for example, have done is as their phones have got bigger, you can double tap the screen and it actually brings the screen down because they understand that everyone's hand isn't big enough to get the thumb to the top of the screen. So I think with there was, also like speaking of relatively low tech kind of scenarios, Barclays did something 10 years ago now probably, where you could customize the front of your debit card. And they learned some really interesting lessons around that because they thought people were just going to put some photos on. It was a really nice experience. Until the Barclays CEO saw one of his staff members have an arrow on their card. And he said, why have you got an arrow on your card? He said, I'm partially sighted. This arrow helps me see which way the card goes into the machine. And then they learned some really interesting stuff around disability and customization around that. So I think it's probably actually taking either the customization a slight step further and allow you to customize some of those things, or potentially segmenting users at an early point in their journey. So again, one thing that we can do on the platforms that we've done is that you have to have an age range for certain things. You can actually give them a slightly different experience based on that age range if you can infer certain things like digital literacy beyond that. But I think there's probably still some work to be done on the kind of example that you're talking about.
I think the other thing about that as well is gone are the days. This is just Dave Hill's view, right? So please beat me up if you want to. But gone are the days when we could design a product or a service that actually is just one fit, one size, put it out there and leave it. I think now in the 21st century, with the diversity we've got, the diversity of thinking that we understand, we have to constantly be bringing in data to learn, right, where are the difficulties, where do the tweaks need to be made. And I think it's a big struggle for a lot of organisations at the moment. Steve and I were talking earlier, in as much as, a lot of people at CEO level, they don't tend to look like a long-haired, scruffy bearded Scouser, but they tend to be my age and look a bit like me. And so, I came out of school in the last part of the last century, and was taught certain ways of how business should be run and how you put a product that doesn't work anymore in the 21st century. You're right. There's a whole diverse range of people we have to be catering to, and I think that's where the constant learning and the constant feed of understanding data and understanding where the difficulties lie and tweaking has to come in. I don't think that you can get it right first time. It's a constant kind of iteration, constantly trying to improve.
Yeah, I think that's where there is an advantage when you have that human in front of it, because a human naturally adapts to the person they're speaking to. But you've got a digital system, and I don't think any digital system is good enough to be able to do that rapid adaptation at the point you meet someone.
No.
Just the way you greet somebody as they come to into your web page or into your service, into the garage, changes depending upon the look and the type of person you speak to and the age.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got to keep learning from all of that and thinking about it, in my view.
But presumably, just on that, the sort of advances in AI and things will aid with all of that. Because I think, for instance, in the Audi example, rather than you having an iPad and kind of going, oh, is that the guy that we're looking for? I mean, presumably we get to a point where guy can wear smart glasses and will automatically feed all the information because the AI system is recognizing all of that sort of stuff. So presumably there's quite a lot of tech coming in that will aid with that, which will allow the human to basically really just focus on the human interaction as opposed to farting about with any of the technology to try and enable that.
I mean, for sure. I mean, obviously we've already got like ANPR, automatic number plate recognition, that the police cars drive in, it'll flash up that someone's not taxed and they'll be able to turn around and change it. So I think that, yeah, there's obviously like big tech coming in that way. I think the point I was trying to make in the presentation with the number plate thing is that you don't need to create huge expansive systems to create amazing humanized experiences. And the same with like nowadays, at some point, phones will easily be able to adapt to understanding the literacy level or the comfortable level of the person using it. I'm absolutely sure, by just recognizing patterns. But at the moment, again, it's like a relatively simple system to implement for anyone to just say, I mean, I use a stocks and shares ISA application, and it has, its opening question was, are you a pro investor? Do you know absolutely nothing about investing, or do you count yourself as knowing in between? And the whole app sets up from the three. So even if we don't invest in big tech and systems at the moment, which is still very, very much at their early evolutionary journey in comparison to other systems, it's still quite easy to segment and customize.
I also think that the humanized aspect as well. So take the ANPR experience description. Yes, it's a great system, and it flags things up to police officers. But then the police officer has to do an interaction, because sometimes the system's wrong or the system hasn't been updated. But what we have found sometimes is that interaction is very much because we've taken a little bit of the humanized process out of it. The police officer's already switched on to, you're committing an offence, when actually quite a few humanized questions and a few bit of interaction would quite quickly determine, right, maybe the system's not quite right, maybe there's something wrong here that I need to think about. And it's just, I guess it's just, for me, it's just remembering that we can create brilliant systems, but actually there's always going to get to a point where a human is going to be on the receiving end in some kind of way, and it's just keeping that in mind and thinking about that.
Yeah, I think I've seen some examples of that where like the YouTube algorithm, demonetizes quite a few videos based on whatever. But if you actually look at it properly, like a human would do, you find that it's kind of like irrelevant. So I suppose that's still a little bit of immaturity in the system, and presumably an over-reliance on that for now. And arguably and presumably all of that is going to improve as time goes on. But definitely at the moment there's still a need for that human interaction and to actually talk to people. So ultimately it comes back to communication, right? And a lot of the stuff that you were saying around getting your staff to adopt a new system and things. I mean, all of that is communication as well. I've been part of ERP implementation systems and teams and things, and yeah, it so stands and falls with communication. It's ridiculous, and it's weird and worrying to see how easily people lose sight of that. And you must come across a lot of examples like that.
We do loads of work with language. I mean, even like a really kind of polarized, simple view is the app example for the investor. If it said, "Are you an idiot?" rather than "Do you know nothing about investing?" my chances of continuing to use their app diminish. Adrienne, who's our language specialist here, was working for one of the top 5 banks and did a job application language test where they changed one word in a job description. They opened a whole new job market simply by changing the word recent to the word proven experience. They opened up people that had been on maternity and on career breaks, whether when they put recent, they chopped out that whole market. And that's just through, not in a negative way, but a bit of ignorance of, you're rushing to write a job spec and that happened, you use that word, you don't think anything of it, where they're actually language and communication can be so powerful. So that's a big, you're absolutely right, it's a big part of the humanised experience to say that, okay, when we're doing this, it's not just creating customisation, but even encouraging people in your language to use it, to embrace it, all those kind of things.
Yeah, I think that's actually very important, because I've seen systems where you perhaps typed a password in wrong.
Yeah.
It's like so damning.
Yeah. Wants to castigate you in some kind of way. Idiot! Can't you remember? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've come across things like that as well. Right, I'm conscious of time, as it's nearly 12. It's flown by actually. But thank you very much. Very, very interesting. What I'd like to do now, and obviously this is very dangerous now, because we usually run a little poll to get feedback from people, which obviously as soon as Dave and Steve see that, they're gonna criticize that everywhere. But get on something running it.
I'm just gonna hit amazing.
So yeah, if you could please all fill in the poll and give us your feedback on today's seminar, but also what you would like to see in the future. And Steve and David, by all means, provide some feedback so we can hopefully improve it in the future, if we can. So while the people here are doing that, I'd like to say goodbye and thank you to the people watching this on YouTube. So obviously check out our website for upcoming webinars, and do feel free to watch some of our other ones. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.